Hey guys, how's it going? Yoshi the Oreo here, coming at you again with another video. As the political divide and racial divide begins to widen even more, I kind of stopped to think about both sides. I know, oh, you're saying both sides, oh, and how they have justified some form of evil position with their own form of justifications, that if you only view it in their worldview, it kind of makes them sound like a good person, Say, for instance, everyone's favorite black people running around talking about, we're going to side with this person because he's black. Doesn't matter what the evidence is. Even if you have that man on video, quite literally, killing somebody in broad daylight with several eyewitnesses not contradicting their stories and details on what happened, you can have the blood splatter of the victim all over the murderer. And somehow these people will quite literally defend the criminal because he's black. Now, let me go ahead and say this, because I'm pretty sure there's some white people that think he's one of the good ones. He's one of no, I'm about to show you. I'm not the exception. Because then there'll be some white motherfuckers, despite the fact that they look at these black people committing evil with such a flimsy justification, such as the person being black, and they'll replicate evil by saying, well, we need to side with the criminal, who happens to be white, by the way, who killed the pedophile. Now, let me make this abundantly clear. I'm not siding with pedophiles. But what I am saying is what I am noticing is that you have a group of white people and a group of black people, excuse me, who have came up with their own justification that can only be viewed through their worldview as morally righteous, coming up with their own justifications to quite literally free criminals. A lot of these people, especially the white sector, be talking about they Christians. I don't know. I mean, if you've read that simple ass story of Jesus Christ and how he lived life, and at the time before they hung him at the cross, the Pharisees put him before the crowd alongside a war criminal by the name of Barbados, and they freed the war criminal over Jesus Christ, which all he had was just accusations. I look at that and I go, if both sides have came up with a justification to free a criminal, they are quite literally, by their own admission, criminal sympathizers. Now, there's some people within the anti-woke space, they're not going to want to admit that, because they've been in the whole culture war, so anything with brown skin on it, you gotta be against it. But I'm going to admit it right here and right now, because somebody has to treat this country like a classroom full of naughty ass kids. You may not have the person that started it, but you gotta punish them all. Because you can't have a winner, you can't have a loser, so you gotta treat them the same way. So I'm gonna say something that a lot of people are going to consider extreme, but to be honest, if you consider this extreme, you're telling me exactly where the fuck you stand. We need to shoot these people. And a lot of people say, well, isn't that a threat? No, it's not a threat, because a threat would be something along the lines of saying you need to shoot a law-abiding citizen. A person that just wants to keep to themselves. They're not doing anything nefarious. That would be considered a threat. What I am saying is that we are looking at two demographics that have came up with their own justifications to free criminals. Now, if you think that's not extreme, but what I am saying is extreme, you're telling me where exactly the fuck you stand. We should not be putting up with that at all, in any way, shape, or form. Don't look me in my fucking video talking about we're gonna report you or all this other shit, talking about you coming up with some extreme shit, but then when these motherfuckers talk, you either ignore it or you comply with it because of their numbers. I understand I'm small. I understand I don't have a large following to make you feel threatened. But what I am saying is factually right. If you don't like criminals on the streets, you would not be tolerating that behavior in any way, shape, or form. Whether it be a black motherfucker talking about we need to free our nigga because he black, versus a white motherfucker talking about how we need to free this person because he's a lot better than these niggas because he killed the pedophile. And don't sit in the comment section trying to come up with some justification as to why that's perfectly fine. It's not. Because what happens when a pedophile kills a pedophile? Should he be free? You didn't think that far. And the funny part is, these are the people that say that only white people are the ones that can run nations, while they quite literally come up with a reason why the criminal should be freed. Interesting. I know what I am saying may sound extreme, but again, comparatively to what? Comparative to these people, what I'm saying is perfectly normal. As a matter of fact, that's the kind of response you should have when you have a criminal sympathizer in your midst. You should feel definitely threatened by the fact that these people will quite literally look at murderers, robbers, stealers, killers, destroyers, people that rape women, people that use human bodies as shields, women who are pregnant as a human shield, and you have some form of justification as to why that person should be released. You should feel definitely afraid to open your mouth to say some shit like that. Because the what the fuck I just said about what we should do with people like you, that ain't a threat. That's a warning. Because a threat should only be considered a threat to people who want to live normal lives, since we're talking about this dichotomy of living in a civilization. And I doubt nobody wants to live in a civilization where you have a justification for a criminal to be released from prison. Nobody wants to live in something like that unless you're some brain dead motherfucker. Then you should really be considered a threat. And I dare you to come to my fucking comment section talking about, oh, you talking about this, you talking about that, you talking about killing this person, that's freeing criminals. I mean, well, I'm gonna water it down to where it actually just sounds like you're just, making a blanket threat. But no. Because comparatively, what I'm saying is a fact. Does it sound extreme? Yeah. But compared to what's happening around our surroundings, that leads to far more extreme things, I don't know, that sounds very sensible. Especially if you don't want to live in a criminal-ridden society. But the problem is we can't come to a consensus on this, because people like to play this whataboutism crap. Now, what about the black people? They got their justification of freeing criminals. Or what about the white people? They doing all this goofy ass stuff. They doing all these bad things and they're getting away with it. Stop looking at evil and then coming up with your own justification why you should do evil. Stop doing that. And that's why people look at you in terms of being black and say, this is why we don't want this shit in our society, because you look at criminals and you replicate what the fuck they do. And white people, you know who I'm talking about. I don't mean as a whole. If you getting angry about what the fuck I'm saying, you're only saying this is what you do on a daily basis. You looked at black people and you saw that and you said, well, if you're gonna do that, we're gonna come up with our own justification too. We tried to play fair. It ain't working. No, you didn't play fair. You played by the rules of people that don't play fair. You never tried to play fair. Playing fair would be you being a lawyer, you being a judge, you being in charge of legislation, and you actually trying to fix the problem in a fair court. But none of y'all really did that. You bitched and complained about your government being evil. You looked at evil and said, let me replicate that, since they gonna do it. I know what I say as a solution is very scary to say, but it honestly does need to be said. That if you really do want to live in a society where criminals are not treated better than citizens, I suggest you start treating these people just like that. Actual threats. But if you want to treat me a threat, by all means, go ahead and do it. But ultimately understand when you put me in prison, matter of fact, I don't really care. But ultimately understand, you put me in prison, you can look at the black people, you can look at white people and say, oh, look at them. It's always them. But ultimately understand, there's someone wearing your coat doing the exact same thing. And irregardless that you stop your personal favorite threat, the threat that wears your coat is still doing the thing you claim to be against. So show me where you stand. This is Yoshi the Oreo, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and God bless.